Okay, so good day, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. This is James Borg of the UFORIA Chronicles saying, I'm back. I'm back. I've been back just today. I'm starting my very first interview for the fall season. With me today, I have Alfred Lambremont Webre, whom has been kind of an inspiration for me for the last few years. Because I've been watching his YouTube videos and his interviews and all his work, and it's stuff that I somewhat do as well. And we both share the same team, so to speak. We both work for the same team, which is, of course, the white hats and the white light and all the good things like that. So that's a welcome to have Alfred Lambremont Webre for the first time on UFORIA Chronicles. Alfred, it's a pleasure. Before I speak, I want to tell anybody that may have not known Alfred Lambremont Webre. He's been around. He's a big guy in the Enlightenment community. Spreads a lot of awareness about a lot of topics. He runs the News Inside Out, and his videos are second to none. He interviews some amazing people with amazing topics. Topics sometimes that needed to be heard, because a lot of times in the world, you don't really know what's going on. And if you do, not in the scope that it's done in. And Alfred exposes all that in a lot of his interviews that he does with certain individuals, well-to-do individuals that know what they're talking about. And it's an important thing that Alfred's doing, because, like I said, if one person starts to know, and then other people know, and next thing you know, more people know, and more people can start talking about it openly, publicly, and maybe change some of the laws we have, or make this a better place, right? Because if everybody keeps quiet, nothing gets done, right? Or if they say, "Oh, it doesn't affect me," well, you know what? Next week it could, right? If you talk about it and you start raising a ruckus in a good political way, in the right way, right? You can make changes for the positive, right? They always said the pen's mightier than the sword. So if it's done the right way, you can beat them at their own game. You're just going to know the system, right? Alfred is also, you're a lawyer. Is that correct, Alfred?
Well, I'm a retired lawyer. I'm a natural law judge. I've been a judge on various natural law tribunals.
Right, the Kuala Lumpur one.
Yeah, I don't practice law in the Admiralty law courts.
Okay, good.
But I've been a judge in the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal. We found George W. Bush, Tony Blair, Richard B. Cheney, Donald H. Rumsfeld, and their cabinets guilty of war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity for the unlawful war in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Guantanamo, Cuba. And I was along with the great Canadian civil rights lawyer, Connie Fogel,
Okay.
the judge in the 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal here in Vancouver, Canada, showing that the 9/11 was actually a war crime that was planned on the inside from great controllers on down. The US had notice of it as early as 1971, 30 years in advance. They used secret time travel technology. They knew about it 30 years in advance. We had a whistleblower, Andrew D. Bashaga, who was a participant in the DARPA CIA time travel program, who became a whistleblower, and he in 1971 in the Time laboratories in New Mexico witnessed the witnessed films that have been brought back from 2001 showing planes hitting the Twin Towers. And so the false flag was planned from the inside 30 years in advance. And that gave rise to the whole war on terror, to many millions of casualties, and to the horror that we have now in Syria and in the Middle East, and to the use of depleted uranium, and to the fact that most of those areas are radioactive now, so that in large parts of Iraq and Afghanistan you have whole generations of birth defects and things
Wow.
like that, because depleted uranium was knowingly used. So all of that ties in, and these are reptilian souls. These are Draco reptilian souls that incarnate here into, and there's actually about, according to Gary Peter Carlson, who has a science of identifying souls, that is, we're a community of human souls that are incarnating here on this planet. But there is a group of reptilian souls that have incarnated here that are infiltrated into the upper positions of power in government, politics, finance, religion, all of the controller positions that they control. And they're the ones that are maintaining the
Control grid.
system, the control grid of war, disease, crime, and poverty that we've had. So part of what we're doing is to expose that, and that is because exopolitics is interdimensional. That is, you expose not only races, but you go interdimensionally into the reincarnation patterns, what sorts of souls are coming here to incarnate, because that's part of the game that is going on now.
Mm-hmm. Rumor has it, if Lucifer wins, he's going to take all the souls and make batteries out of all of us. And the only ones that he wants to have living are the ones that are sold to him. But anyway, we're going to stop that. We're all going to stop that. Because, it's like Humpty Dumpty sat on the hill. Humpty Dumpty came down, right? So the capstone of the pyramid's got to come down, right? If you notice, there's no pyramid out there with a capstone. Okay, so that's a double meaning there. All right, notice the capstone's never on the cap or the pyramid, right? Maybe they took it down for a reason. Maybe they're trying to tell us something. Our pilgrims and pioneers from the past, right? Past ages. So anyway, sorry for getting a little dark there. It is a good world, but it's got dark elements that we're trying to fix. Many of us are, Alfred included. Alfred, you went to Yale University, 1967, or 1964 to 67. Is that correct?
Well, I went to Yale undergraduate. I graduated in 64. And then I graduated in 1967 from the law school there. I graduated in international law, and then I had a Fulbright in Uruguay for a year until 1968 in international economic integration. And it was my way of gaming the system and not being drafted into a genocidal war in Vietnam at the time, because I have a double citizenship. I'm both a Canadian citizen and an American citizen. And at that time, I would have been drafted into the war, as were some of my classmates at Yale Law School. In fact, one of our most brilliant classmates was drafted into the war in Vietnam and was shot as he was stepping out of a helicopter, and all that education and everything was just shot out. I know this is turning into a very dark conversation. I'm not sure why, but we're on a dark planet. I
agree.
can't help it.
Yeah. We'll get better, but we got to expose it to make it go better, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've got websites like positivefuture.info that prove that we're on a positive timeline, but in the meantime, we're dealing with a lot of stuff.
A lot of transitional stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we get right into it now? Okay, so you just came back from Barcelona, Spain.
Yeah.
And you tell me what you were doing there.
That was really amazing. I was there because I was invited to give both a workshop and a lecture, and it was really a beautiful event. It was in a hotel there where they had sort of a UFO on the top of the hotel. It looked like a flying saucer, and that's why they hold it in that hotel.
Wow.
And it was from September 6th to 8th, 2019. And on the second night, there were UFOs that came down over the hotel, and they were filmed. I mean, it was actually
Beautiful.
happening. Yeah.
Wow.
So
have you had many UFO sightings, Alfred?
Well, in fact, people can go to exopolitics.com, our website, and also it's up on News Inside Out, and it's on our channel Exopolitics TV, and there you can see the we did a complete presentation of it at the first annual UFO conference at Yale, Washington on June 30th, 2017, of the UFO ET abduction of President Jimmy Carter, Alfred Lambremont Webre, and Andrew D. Basiago.
Wow.
Yeah, President Jimmy Carter, myself, and Andrew Basiago, who is a whistleblower from he's a U.S. chrononaut, a time traveler, and a whistleblower from the DARPA CIA time travel program, and also a Mars explorer. He's been on Mars. We were all abducted. We don't use the word abducted, but adducted, which means taken to the stars, because we're taken to have our consciousness expanded so that we can come back to Earth and have expanded lives and share our adventures and share expanded consciousness back here on Earth. And
beautiful.
This happened to me in 1973, and it happened to Jimmy Carter in '69, and it happened to Andy Basiago in '75. At the 3D level, at the spaceship level, it was happening sort of outside of time. Jimmy Carter was abducted so that he would be prepared. It happened in January of 1969, and it's all, if you go there to exopolitics.com, you see he was in the company of the members of the Leary, Georgia Lions Club, and they were about to go into a meeting, and they had a huge UFO experience. The UFO that they said was as large as the moon, and that's how they experienced it. But he went into missing time and was taken aboard a ship, and we show why we think he was taken aboard a ship.
Okay.
And this was to prepare him to run for president, and then to prepare him to be a disclosure president. And all this is done on the ship.
Wow.
I myself was the general counsel of the Environmental Protection Administration of the city of New York in 1972, from about 1970 to 73. And in 1972, I mean, I didn't know anything about it. I really hadn't focused on extraterrestrials. And I started reading books like Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. But
Okay.
all of a sudden, in 73, at the beginning of 73, I met this a professor from Rutgers who was an expert in extraterrestrials and who had some abduction experiences. And in February of 1973, I had my own abduction, and I was taken aboard the same craft of the same extraterrestrials that had abducted Jimmy Carter. And
Okay.
I describe all of that. In fact, I wrote a 750 page book about it that you can go online and get the book. It's on Amazon, or you can go to Universe Books.
What's the book called?
It's called My Journey Landing Heaven on Earth.
Okay.
I just give that title to it. And then in 1975, and that was in 1973, and all of a sudden I got prepared about it, and just a few years later, in 1976, right after he won the
Presidency.
the presidency in the interim, in the transition period, in 1976, in November, December, Jimmy Carter sent an emissary to meet with me at the Carlisle Hotel in New York. And we met. He says, Jimmy Carter wants to stay in touch with you, because at that time, Representative Henry B. Gonzalez, who was the chairman of the House Banking Committee at the U.S. Congress, had invited me to help to assist in getting the House Select Committee to investigate the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King passed, which we did. And then Jimmy Carter had just been elected president, and he sent a representative to meet with me to say that as president-elect, he wanted to keep in touch with that, because it turns out that Jimmy Carter is John F. Kennedy's half-brother.
Oh, wow.
You see, what happened is that Jimmy Carter's mother was John F. Kennedy's secretary.
Okay.
And she became pregnant, and then so when that happened, he sent her back to Georgia, and she got married, and then they had Jimmy Carter, and he went forward and had his life there, but they were half brothers. But Jimmy Carter was, always cognizant of that. But also, by 1976, he and in the extraterrestrial abduction, we had been coordinating all of this on the ships. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when he was taken up on the ships in 69, that's when they coordinated him to win the presidency. And that's when I was invited down by this representative to go to a dinner on Capitol Hill in December of '76 before the inauguration in January 20th, 1977. And I was at this dinner with, the close representatives of the Carter Circle. They call themselves JC and the 12 Apostles, Jimmy Carter and the 12 Apostles.
Okay, wow, good name.
No, they said, "You're gonna work for Peanut." That's what they called him, is Peanut,
Peanut,
because he was
yeah.
a peanut farmer.
Peanut farmer, yeah.
Yeah,
He was my favorite American president.
yeah.
I
Because
liked him.
he was a white light. He was of white light. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, and on the ships they had coordinated me, and so at the dinner I suddenly got this flash that let's have the first civilian-led extraterrestrial communication project in the White House, because all of them to that point had been, the military had led it, you know, like when Gerald Ford had that flap in 1973 in Michigan, and Gerald Ford was the person was the lawyer on the Warren Commission who invented the single bullet theory. He was all about the cover up. So he brought in McNamara, who led the Vietnam War, and McNamara came in and said, there are no UFOs, it's all swamp gas. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we had a chance to break through because we had coordinated on the ship. So then when we were back down at 3D, we could break it through.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back then from that dinner, I got that idea, and I went back, and through a friend of mine, I linked up with Russ Targ.
Russell Targ. Oh, yeah.
Russell Targ.
Remote viewer.
Yeah, at Stanford Research Institute, and I met with him out at SRI, and he said, I said, look, I just met with Jimmy Carter's Inner Circle, and what if we started an extraterrestrial communication project there? He said, well, we can't do it here, but look, do it at the Futurist Center at SRI. So call up Peter Schwartz, who's with the center. They had about 5 or 6 futurists at Stanford Research Institute. So I called up Peter Schwartz. I went over and interviewed them, and we really clicked, and they offered me a job. So I moved out, took my family, moved them out there, and next spring, lo and behold, I'm at SRI, and I'm flying back and forth to Washington, meeting inside the Carter White House, beginning to implement the Jimmy Carter extraterrestrial communication study.
That's right, 1977. Now, did that get off the ground?
Okay, so here we are. It's October 1977, right?
Okay.
So
at the same time.
No.
Hang on. I got to say, 1977 is a key year.
Yeah.
So for the UFO community and Elvis fans, right? Okay, Elvis died that year. Okay, unfortunately, but the UFO community, we had 2 big blockbuster movies that come out for the first time and just riveted everybody. One was Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
right,
with Richard Dreyfuss, right? And then the next one was Star Wars, right? Both released in 1977.
Wow.
And also for on me on a personal note, that when I was 9 years old, I also had my first UFO sighting.
Oh, amazing! Where was that?
That was in Brampton, Ontario. On a Friday night, I was 9. We went to the grocery. Well, we went to a variety store actually, because we were low on milk and potato chips. And me being a 9-year-old kid, that was my my drank milk and I had potato chips, right? So my sister said, okay, we got to buy some more. So we went to the store, and So the store was it was like a plaza, and there's the variety store, and then where she parked was facing a field. Now the city's grown. It's not a field no more. It's got businesses there. But at the time, it was a field. And she says, "Okay, you stay in the car. I'm gonna run in." And I said, "Okay, no problem, right?" So the car next to me, there are two kids, teenagers, right, making out right in the car, right, kissing and stuff like that, and then me, right, and then I'm looking like a 9-year-old. I go, I'm stuck in a car. Okay, I'm looking right. I'm looking outside, and I see this big. It's like a rectangle, a different color black in the sky, right, and then the rectangle starts playing lights. There's like lots of lights moving. So the best way I can describe it's like watching a movie theater in the sky with all these lights, right? And what they were is like orbs flying, like a freeway all the time. And well, at that point, I didn't know what I was looking at. So I got out of the car. Against my sister's wishes, I got out of the car. I tapped on the kids that were making out, and I'm going, "Hey, buddy," right? I said, "Look at that," right? And they're looking at that, and then they get out of the car, and then I guess we're all looking at the sky. People driving in, they don't even park because they're looking at us, looking in the sky, and they're seeing it. And then my sister comes out, she's yelling and screaming, "Jimmy, I told you to stay in the car." And I go, "Liz, look up there." And then she just about drops her groceries. She's like, "Wow, what's that?" So we're all watching this thing. We all can't figure out what it is. And we left, and it was still going on. My sister goes to me, "Now, don't you ever tell anybody what you just saw, okay? Because they think they'll lock us up. They'll think we're crazy." And this was 1977. I was 9, right? So it was my and I didn't even know what I was looking at. Later on, it would be, so I was looking at orbs in the sky. I didn't even know what an orb was till maybe 1998, right? When I was ghost hunting, right? And I seen orbs for the first time, and I said, "Wow, it's the same thing," right? But that was my first UFO sighting. But you were saying something about 77. Sorry to cut you off there. It was just a good year for me.
So there's a huge amount of activity in 1977. Well, this was the 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study because he had promised on the campaign trail, if he was elected, to open up the UFO files. So this was the fulfillment of the campaign study, right?
Right.
And I had just gotten the approval in the Carter White House to go ahead with the Carter White House study, which was a formal SRI Stanford research study. We had a complete plan, and SRI had approved it, and this staff member that I met with in the White House, in the executive office building, had approved it. And then I was asked to meet with an assistant secretary of defense in the Carter White House, in the Carter administration over in the Pentagon. And that's when things went sideways, okay? This was in October of 1977. And we're in October now. So this is where it started to go sideways, because you asked if it went sideways or not.
Yeah.
I walked into the Pentagon. His office was in the inner ring of the Pentagon, which is Ring E.
Okay.
By the way, at that time, in the inner ring, there was a picnic table with this umbrella, with a brightly colored umbrella. That was what was in the middle of the Pentagon at the time. I don't know what there is there now. So I was waiting to meet with him, and I went in, and it was a big sort of antechamber with his secretary, and they sat me right in front of the secretary, and I was, sort of sitting in front of this, And the, so I was just waiting there, and the secretary then has a newspaper and lifts up this newspaper, right, to read it.
Okay.
So that the newspaper's facing me, and on the newspaper facing me, they have pasted these huge letters, the letters about a foot high, SEX, sex,
Okay.
okay? i.e., they're doing a mind control MK Ultra number on me, right?
Right. Right.
You follow me? To kind
Yeah.
of, and I go, oh shit, man, what have I walked into, right? So I said, well, I'm just gonna totally like ignore it. So I just go like that. So I just wait. And then I go into the Assistant Secretary of Defense. I had just come from the White House where I got the approval, right?
Right.
So I walked into the Draco headquarters that want to shut this down
In the Pentagon,
because the United States has, since 1933, they signed a secret treaty, Roosevelt did, with the Dracos in Balboa, Panama, followed by 1948, Harry S. Truman signed another treaty with the Dracos and the Orion Greys in 1948, followed 1954, Eisenhower signed another treaty, the Greada Treaty with the Dracos, followed by the Tau 9 Treaty, which Bush 1 signed, and they set up basically the United States as the proconsul of the Draco reptilians on Earth, which is why they have 175 military bases on the planet. They basically represent the Dracos, and all of the military of the United States is just Draco bases. And we have whistleblowers from the US military where they have to deliver crates of human baby meat in tins to Dracos every month. If you go to Area 51 at level 7, they have to deliver baby meat. We have human trafficking. There are 200,000 children that go missing every month. Okay, there are a reported 60 million human slaves that work at hidden bases in the solar system, producing products for the secret space program that are exported out into the galaxy, and that's what the Matrix makes their money on, in accordance with these secret Draco treaties. We have, once Trump, the current president, said, oh, I'm abrogating the Paris Global Warming Treaty, he can pull out of it by saying, then we developed a paper that said, abrogate this. You can abrogate the Paris Treaty, well then by signatures, abrogate the Draco Treaty. We have a petition online, and Laura Eisenhower, in an interview, she's a great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower who signed the Greada Treaty, is ready to walk into the Oval Office and say to Trump, okay, sign it, sign this. You say you're against pedo, you say you're against human slavery, you say you're against wars. All of that is happening because humans are de facto slaves on planet Earth because of all of the secret treaties, all 5 of them, that the US has signed with the Draco reptilians and Orion Greys. Sign these and abrogate all these treaties immediately. So that's what the exopolitical situation is. So what happened? I was in there in with the Assistant Secretary of Defense. I walked out. They started hitting me with directed energy weapons. I came out of there. I got to Washington National Airport. I had brought my tennis racket because some friends of mine in Washington, I played tennis with some friends of mine in Washington, and Judge Alfred Friendly was a federal court of appeals judge, and he had a tennis court at his home in Washington, D.C., and he used to allow us to play. So I had a tennis racket that I used as my Jedi light sword,
Okay, yeah.
And I had these men in black. I had 3 men in black in black pork pie hats, and they had rifles, telescopic rifles on their ties. and they were trying to corner me in the airline waiting room, and I just, I used my racket. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they were trying to kidnap me and to shut down this thing, but I evaded them. From there, I had to fly to New Orleans because, as part of Congressman Henry B. Gonzalez, I was a consultant to Congressman Henry B. Gonzalez on the committee, House Select Committee on Assassinations, to investigate the assassination of John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King.
Right.
I had an appointment that Sunday with the district attorney of New Orleans down at the New Orleans Athletic Club,
Okay.
which he invited me. Man, that Saturday, my brother John was studying architecture at Tulane, so he and I went to the King Tut exhibit. Remember the King Tut exhibit?
Yeah.
Was going around? The King Tut exhibit happened to be there, and he and I went to the King Tut exhibit. And I don't know what happened, but they must have like thrown some kind of chemical at me, but I got very, very sick, and I missed that appointment on that Sunday with the district attorney. That's the guy that they made a movie about it with him. You know, on the JFK.
Oh yeah.
There's a movie called JFK, and so then I went back to SRI, and the liaison from the Pentagon. Let me just have a little drink here, because I've been getting over some laryngitis, and I just want to.
Okay, by all means,
have
as much as you need.
Tea and honey.
Tea and honey are great for colds and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And back at SRI, the Pentagon liaison to Stanford Research Institute called a meeting, and I was called into a meeting with Peter Schwartz of the Futures Institute and an African American gentleman who was like a supervisor, and the Pentagon liaison said, if this project, namely the Carter White House extraterrestrial communication project, goes forward, we are going to cut all contract research with SRI. And that would have meant probably at least
everybody losing their jobs. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he said, because there are no UFOs. And at that point, both Peter Schwartz and the supervisor were just silent, and that was it. They just terminated between the Men in Black and the MK Ultra and the directed energy weapons. They tried to shut that down because the U.S. military are subject to secret treaties with the Dracos. And that's why the U.S. is in perpetual war. It's because they signed 5 secret treaties with the Draco reptilians. And that's why the U.S. has 175 military bases. And that's why the planet is in a program of war, disease, crime, and poverty, because the Dracos want to subject humans to a tremendous amount of suffering, so they get what's called loosh, which is like this byproduct of suffering on the human soul. And there is interplanetary and intersolar system trafficking in human souls, trafficking in human slavery, trafficking in human body parts, trafficking in human meat, baby meat, a tremendous amount of pedocriminal trafficking on the planet, in the solar system, and all of this is set up and carried out because of these treaties. And so we have put out, and people can go to exopolitics.com and newsinsideout.com and see all of this, and they can sign it there. And it's and you know, and Laura Eisenhower is ready to take it onto Trump's desk, and Trump can do it with a signature. And 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 if he's not ready to sign it, then he's a hypocrite. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
He's fooling everybody.
Oh, yeah.
He's fooling
Well,
everybody because it's the Dracos that have had the U.S. subjugated ever since Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, and Bush 1. Anyway, that's simple. Those are simple, fundamental lessons. That's Exopolitics 101.
101. Okay.
So there you have it.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I don't know where to go from there. You just blew my socks off. So that was 1977 that happened.
Yeah, yeah, and so, uh, uh, so that was like my introduction to exopolitics. You know, I went from being an environmental lawyer to being an exopolitical actor and activist, and that's when I really began to understand what this was all about. And when I became engaged at this level, and became first in contact with positive ethical extraterrestrials, and you know, really became committed to uh, move Earth along a positive timeline.
Oh, exactly. Now, who are the extraterrestrial brothers and sisters that you're aligned with?
Well, I think that there are many. I would say that from, well, that's a very complex question. Okay.
True. Yeah, it could be
Yeah,
many.
I mean
Yeah.
that's like
From a council
really,
too. Yeah.
yeah, it's like really complex because there's spiritual alignment, and then there's infrastructure and institutional alignment. There's like, you know, those are two different things, although they're both interrelated. But it's basically at the soul level, you know, that because things happen at that level, at the soul level. But I would say to go about it very systematically, first of all, at the exopolitical level, I would say, first of all, aligned with the Regional Galactic Governance Council, and that is uh, the governance council that of the upper dimensional human ethical uh, uh, planets, extraterrestrial civilizations that are aligned and sort of have an oversight role over Earth, and that includes the Pleiadians, the Alpha Centaurians, the Sirians, and others. And these are and if you go to our channel, Exopolitics TV, we've had a lot of series of interviews and articles around them. We believe that, for example, there was a lifelong Canadian NORAD officer who in I'm just going to get this Stanley Fulham, who wrote a book in the summer of 2010 on the basis of his contacts with the Regional Galactic Governance Council, and who said that the Regional Galactic Governance Council is going to show itself over New York on October 13th, 2010. And when he did that, he published a book, an actual book, that on the back of the cover, and in it said, the Regional Galactic Governance Council is going to show itself on October 13, 2010. And we all said, you're crazy. I mean, who publishes that on the back of a book? You know, an actual date on the back of your book, right? Isn't that crazy? Well,
it's unheard of, actually.
it's unheard of. Well, you can go to exopolitics.com or News Inside Out or Exopolitics TV. And what happened? On October 13, 2010, over New York, the day before the UN Outer Space Conference was scheduled to meet to discuss the protocols for meeting with other extraterrestrials, another civilization.
Wow.
The Regional Galactic Governance Council deshrouded its fleet over New York. Of course.
There you go.
What happened? The mainstream press said, "Oh, it's party balloons." Somebody released party balloons from the Bronx. No. So you can go to our articles and you can go to the photographs and you can see we had photographs of the people on the blocks in Manhattan looking up like this, because they were looking up at the fleet that had been that had been decloaked.
Wow.
But you know, and what did they say? They said, we want to come down, we want to clean the Earth's environment.
Mm-hmm.
We want to land and speak at the UN. They're very involved. They're very, very involved. You see, because there's been a line drawn in the sand about this planet, because in this solar system there have been 2 destructive nuclear wars on 2 human planets before. One was Tiamat,
right.
And this is a planet. It was a verdant planet like Earth, a very large planet, and it was about 700,000 years ago. There was a nuclear war between the reptilians and the humans on Tiamat. It was blown apart, and it is now the asteroid belt. And there were 2 million souls, human souls, that got blown to smithereens there. Their bodies did, and now they had to be transferred there and totally traumatized. They were traumatized for about 100,000 years. We're told this is in the law of one channelings,
Right.
and then they have been brought to Earth, and they're incarnating now, kind of in an R&R, to get over that particular trauma. But 2 billion of the billions of beings that are, you know, of the number of billion souls that are on the planet now are from Tiamat, from that war. The second nuclear war that has occurred has been on Mars. Mars was a verdant planet up until about 700,000 years ago. This is part of that same war.
Mm-hmm.
And now Mars is a pumpkin-like shaped planet, and it has no atmosphere. It has no surface vegetation. There are reptilian beings of all sorts running around on the surface, and the human population of Mars lives underground, and there's some Earth human colonies there. And they have recently found, the Mars rovers found nuclides that are of the sort used in hydrogen bombs, and that proves that is part of the evidence of the nuclear war, the reptilian human nuclear war that blew out the population and the verdant thing of Mars. So now we're back with our backs against the wall as a human population here on Earth, the last verdant planet in third density in this solar system. And look, we've had the reptilian population here, of the reptilian souls that have been wanting to have a nuclear war to blow up the planet here.
Countless times.
That is that is kind of the line in the sand that is occurring here now. So those are the stakes, and that's exopolitics.
That's it.
Exopolitics is not something that you go and, oh my God, let me look at the number of angels on the end of a pin. No, this is practical. This is a war that is happening. You know, most people are asleep,
Oh, yeah.
and most people are hypnotized inside the Saturn Moon matrix.
Yeah.
The reptilian population, there's a Saturn Moon matrix that is brainwashing, and they have most of the Earth population are hypnotized inside the Saturn Moon matrix, inside a forced reincarnation pattern, and all they do is they go inside forced reincarnation. They wake up, and then they say, well, you know, I'll just go to work for 70 years and then I'll die and then I'll do it again.
And repeat the pattern. Take the vaccines and drink the fluoridated water and inhale the chemtrailed skies. Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Unbelievable.
And so now our job is to try and, you know, to keep this planet not getting blown up. And there's a tremendous amount of assistance here from the light beings, from the light force, so that it will not get blown up. And this is what happened. We had, and this is the case that we went to Barcelona to report, and that was the fulfillment of the prophecy of Chico Javier. I'm just going to take, excuse me, just a second.
Yeah.
I'm just getting over this sort of.
Cool. No problem. So Alfred, you get everybody there. Alfred Webre, he's an amazing guy. He's done a lot of things, and then, as we're learning now, he's going to talk about Hugo.
Yeah, his name is Chico Javier. Chico Javier was a Brazilian psychic medium.
Okay.
Who died several years ago, but during his lifetime, he sold over 40 million copies of his books, and he donated all of the profits of the books to charity, because he said that he didn't write the books; they were all, you know, written through him.
Channeled, yeah.
Yeah, but one of his very important contributions was this, that he stated at one point that on July 20th, 1969, which coincidentally was the date that the United States allegedly first landed on the moon. Boom. Some high power in, you know, the interdimensional spiritual dimensions came down and said, we're going to give humanity 50 years. And if at the end of the 50 years, on July 20th, 2019, we're now October 26, 2019. If on July 20th, 2019, World War III has not happened, three things will happen. There will be a great sighting of UFOs. Number two, World War III will not happen. And number three, humanity will join the community of galactic worlds, peaceful galactic worlds.
Good.
Well, what happened? Come July 20th, 2019, World War III had not happened. Okay? It has not happened.
No,
Number two, on July 20th, 2019, we were privileged to be through people that we were in communication with, and people can go to, again, Exopolitics TV on YouTube, newsinsideout.com, exopolitics.com, at the Lakota territories, in
Yeah,
Pine
Dakota. Yeah,
Ridge, South Dakota, where
yeah,
Wounded Knee is,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
where Custer once was defeated.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
badly too.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was on the fourth night of a sacred Sundance by the Lakota warriors. And we have the witnesses there. We have the photographs. Uh, we couldn't take cameras into the Sundance, but we have all of the witnesses. There was a huge sightings of
Wow.
UFOs that came down at that point, and that was a fulfillment of the prophecy. And also uh, in Barcelona, Spain,
Hmm.
one of the contactees there has sent me the photographs of a huge sighting of UFOs that came down on July 20th that we're going to put up. And
Wow.
it's and I commend your listeners and your viewing audience to go to News Insider, to Exopolitics TV, to the Chico Javier, to the Lakota, uh, to all of the sightings there that happened on July 20th. And so
July
there
20th.
is going to be no World War III, and the Earth is going to join the
Human Galactics.
yeah. And what does that mean? It means that the Lucifer rebellion's over.
Hmm.
It's over. Lucifer's over
Yeah.
because, as far as we know, and people can go to many different sources. You know, we've been following the Lucifer rebellion very closely, both through the both through the Urantia.org, the Urantia book
Okay.
community, and a lot of the channelings out of there. What they say is that the trial of Lucifer has happened, that he was offered divine mercy and he blew it off, and he's been terminated. So Lucifer and Satan don't exist anymore, and all these Luciferic and satanic trolls, you know, they don't have any energy anymore. They don't have any power anymore because their main power is gone. And so the Lucifer rebellion's over, and now it's the process of landing the again the universe society, the divine
The
order.
spaceships.
Yeah, exactly.
Landing the spaceships.
Yeah, linear
Actually,
spaceships. Yeah,
they really don't land. They actually stay in the sky, parked, right? And then beam down, or tractor beam, whatever they do. Yeah, actually, they just materialize on Earth,
yeah,
right? But I guess that's a form of beaming me up or whatever,
yeah.
right?
So
So now, got a
yeah,
quick question for you.
yeah,
Only because I felt I've been hit too, and there's a lot of people that are targeted individuals that are in the UFO community. So you were mentioning 1977, and that you were hit with a targeted weapon, right?
yeah.
So what kind of weapon was that in 1977?
Well, I mean that was just the beginning of my targeting, which has continued since then. And so that part of my work since then has been to uh, we do a lot of interviews with the community of targeted individuals,
That's
and
good.
also we've done a lot of research and broadcast about the sentient off-planet inorganic invading pathogenic artificial intelligence, because there's apart from the organic manipulatory extraterrestrials like the Dracos, etc., there's also another actor, and that's the inorganic, sentient, artificial intelligence, plasma base that's invading in the planet.
Is that the
That's,
black goo?
yeah, that's it.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all of this is part of the AI singularity, or the transhumanist agenda, trying to get, that wants to take over and become God, and wants to take over humans and robotize humans, as
Oh,
we were talking about. So this is more and more of the layers that the multi-dimensional perspective, or the exopolitical perspective, have been
right.
examining.
It's funny you wrote a book on the Omniverse, and you're friends with Andrew Bozzadio, and you did the time thing there with Bozzadio, and then you went up on the UFOs, right? One thing I got to tell you, it's uniqueness because of my name, right? Borg, right? Now, huge Star Trek fan. Okay. I was born in '67, so they were playing the originals back then. And me and my older brother used to watch Star Trek all the time, the original series,
Right.
right? Captain Kirk and stuff like that. And then later on came the next, the Captain Picard series, which was good too. And that's where they introduced the Borg. Now, I'm looking back at it, and it's like if you had, and you were saying Jimmy Carter era, 1979. 1979, we had problem with Egypt. Egypt was at a war with, they were at war with Egypt and I believe Israel. And Sadat, right? Sadat. And then the peace talks with Carter, okay? So if you're looking back in Time Machine, even my name, they kind of messed up. They made it a villain, right? So
Isn't
they
that
probably,
interesting?
yeah, this is what I'm going at. So they could see the future, and they want to corrupt the future as well, right? So they'll paint a bad picture, okay, of a person that's going to be doing something really fantastic,
Yeah,
right?
and as you were saying prior to the show, they took the Viking and they made it into something that's not human,
Right.
which I thought very interesting, because you were talking about how the Borg is really the Viking, because it's
That's
a
right.
Viking name.
Big
That's
time.
really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And also Duncan O'Finian and Corso, okay? The first super soldiers, they used Celtics, right? Celts, and they used Native Indian, and Scots, right? So Celts, Scots, and Native Indians, right? Because they were the best brute force fighters, right? And their endurance is a little bit better for running and stuff like that. They're like bulked out, right? And that's what they use. If their genes matched that, they were after them. Scots, Celts, and Native Indians, or a mixture of all three, right? And well, that's Duncan O'Finian can tell you more about that. But it's something, Alfred. And we're on to something too, especially when you were talking about the July 20th, right? July 20th. That's a date too. I don't know what I was doing, but I remember the date July 20th this year, right? And it was a good day for me. I don't know what I was doing, but around that time it was still good times. And then I had a couple tragedies afterward. But in all this here, you said the Omniverse. Explain to people too what the Omniverse is. Just that's the simple answer.
Yeah. Well, this is right. This is very simple. It's universe, multiverse, omniverse, and it's a progression. The omniverse is the third great cosmological body after the universe and the multiverse through which humanity understands the cosmos. And the universe was developed or was more widely understood in our current, standard history around 3500 BC through the Sumerian astronomers. They were the ones that really developed the universe initially as an organic singularity of time, energy, space, and matter. That's what a universe is. It's a singularity of time, energy, space, and matter.
Wow.
And a multiverse, that term was first brought into wider use around 1895 by the American scientist William James. And what multiverse means is the collection of all of the universes. In other words, the sum of all of the parallel universes. In other words, because there's not only one universe, but there's a multiplicity of parallel universes. Now, to show you how many universes there are, we're just in one of them here. There's two scientists, current scientists at Stanford, have made an estimate of the number of universes in our multiverse, and their estimate is that it's 10 to the 7th to the 7th. And that number, it's so large that we don't have a name for it, but we don't have a concept of it, because if you wrote 10 to the power of 7 to the power of 7 out by hand or in 12-point type, that number would be 260 million miles long.
Wow.
That's how many universes there are in the multiverse. Now, the Omniverse, okay? So this is universe, multiverse, Omniverse. And the Omniverse is the third body that came more into formal definition in 2014. We're now in 2019 through three independent scientists or books.
Okay.
One was Bertolacci wrote a book on the Omniverse in 2014. The second was Wes Penray.
Oh yeah.
Who wrote a book on a paper on the Ka, what he calls it, instead of calling it Omniverse, he called it the Ka, which is an Egyptian name, Khaa.
Okay.
And the third was my book on my initial book on the Omniverse, which appeared also in 2014. And that's something that happens often, that when something occurs, there's discovery or sorts, it happens like in different parts of the world at the same time. It's like nature brings it down on multiple times. Now, what does the Omniverse mean? I was just giving this to give context.
Sure.
And what the Omniverse means, if you're going to make an equation of it, it says Omniverse equals multiverse, in other words, the sum of all of the universes plus the spiritual dimensions. So that Omniverse equals multiverse plus the spiritual dimensions. Now, what do the spiritual dimensions equal? They equal the intelligent civilization of souls in the afterlife, plus the spiritual beings, plus source, or people call it God. Now, traditionally or conventionally in our, quote, modern civilization, that has been thought to be a matter of subjective belief. that is souls, spiritual beings, afterlife, and God are subjective. It's just a matter of subjective belief. They don't exist. However, we now have, we now can prove, and we have evidence through the scientific method of souls, of the afterlife, of spiritual beings and God through sciences such as parapsychology and the scientific method, which is where you have uh, 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 protocols and replicable data, and so that you can show that, so that the afterlife exists, that souls exist, that spiritual beings exist, that God exists, that source exists. And so that's why the Omniverse now exists, because it is a matter of science. It is not a matter of belief. And so these three books were examples of books that established in science. For example, my book, The Omniverse, was first started by request from Oxford University Press, quote, a cathedral of learning in the canon of science. Oxford University Press came to me and asked me, and they're part of Oxford University, and they asked me to write a book on extraterrestrials and the law. So I had to sit down, and in order to do that, I had to devise a whole ontology. Uh, 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 how do you a whole ontology uh, uh,
Okay.
of dimensions, a dimension-based theory of intelligence in the universe and in the multiverse, because there was no ontology that existed inside the science of inside the inside the canon of science to describe how extraterrestrials think about themselves, which is dimension based. They say, I'm an Arcturian from the sixth density. That isn't how humans think of themselves.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So they so we've so it was in the writing of the book of the Omniverse that we actually brought the Omniverse down into the third density, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then we published it into the scientific system. So that's how we went about it.
Wow. And now you have 3 books on that. You have
Right, exactly. I have a third.
Exopolitics, Politics, and Law in the Universe of the Treaties.
Yeah.
And then you have the Omniverse, the transdimensional, and then the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse. Right?
Yeah, and then I there's a book coming out now in January called The Emergence of
the Omniverse. That's right.
of
Yeah.
the Omniverse, and that's the subject of the lecture that I gave. I gave a workshop in Barcelona called Exopolitics and a Positive Future, in which I went into the reasons why Earth is now in a positive future. And then I gave a lecture on emergence of the Omniverse, which is the what is coming out now in January. And it's all like of a piece, because it's all coming out, and with the fulfillment of the Chico Javier prophecy and the landing in the Lakota territories, it's like this beautiful piece that is happening in this cosmic synchronicity. It's amazing.
Oh yeah.
It's just
Well,
beautiful.
it's beautiful. So what plans do we got for 2020?
I'm sorry?
What plans do we have for 2020?
You mean as far as what?
Well, you got a book coming out. When's that? That's out when?
Yeah. Well, in early in early January 2020, we are both the English edition of Emergence of the Omniverse will be coming out, and
Okay.
also in Spanish, it'll be out La Aparición del Omniverso, and there's a team of translators. There's a beautiful person in France who runs a translation agency, and as we speak now, that's being translated into Spanish, and so the English and the Spanish translation will be happening. And
Okay.
also my book Exopolitics is being translated into Portuguese, and so that is being happening for Brazil in January. My book, The Omniverse, so far is in English, Hungarian, German, and Chinese.
Wow.
So that's starting to go out. And I was just informed that for the summer of 2020, I've been invited along with Dr. Michio Kaku
Okay.
to deliver some major lectures at a center in Mexico City. It's holds 1,500 people.
Wow.
Uh, uh, so I'll be doing that on the Omniverse. And
Fantastic.
so, yeah, so I think that uh, we're going to be able to start to getting into some of the upper concepts, and really uh, the messages that were happening with the Chico Javier prophecy, that we've moved beyond World War III. We're moving into the fifth density, beyond the war, disease, crime, and poverty. The Lucifer rebellion's over. You know, we're moving into those into the areas more of love.
And benevolence. Yeah.
Yeah, and so those are the messages in the Omniverse books. It's more of a spiritual content of our incarnations here, and I think that that is what 2020 and forward is going to bring. That's
Good.
my feeling.
That's fantastic. Alfred, we're approaching almost 2 hours now. Time
The
flies.
time has just flown by. I can't believe it.
We haven't even touched on
I can't
a lot
believe
of
it. It's
things,
just
right?
flown by. It's just flown by. This has been totally amazing. Thank you for being so receptive to what I've been, saying.
Well, I was talking to Alfred for all you viewers out there. I was mentioning to Alfred that it was a real treat to have him on, and I want Alfred to come on again, Alfred, because I'd like to have you as the main guy, maybe once every 4 or 5 months, right? Come on
Great.
and give us the news inside out, right, of what's
Oh,
going
great.
on, right?
Yeah.
And maybe if you want to bring on a guest too, we'll do a panel or something, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
we can,
That'd be really good.
because we know a lot of interesting people, both you and I, and sometimes we can cross-reference each other's guests and stuff like that, and do a good panel, right?
That sounds like a very good concept. A lot of cross fertilization, a lot of things can happen.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, everybody, Alfred Lambremont Weber's got a new book. It's Emergence of the Omniverse. It's going to be out in 2020, January. He's got some amazing books out there. There's one book I wanted to, it's the Levesque cases. Was that about Reddy Levesque?
You know, it's probably the same Levesque family. It's from another Montreal, Quebec person called Pierre Levesque. Pierre
Okay.
R. Levesque. And that is so interesting. I will tell you why. Pierre Levesque was a central person in a community of about 150 people who in 1973 in rural Ontario, they were Quebecers, they were from Ontario. They were up in rural Ontario uh, and they were taken up in a spaceship.
Wow.
150. There was a mass abduction.
Okay.
And I ended up being their lawyer.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's wow.
And I actually won. You're going to find this amazing. I won a $750 million default judgment against the government of Ontario on behalf of Pierre R. Levesque.
Wow.
And that was set aside. Oh, I mean, it just, they couldn't believe it. They down at, they couldn't believe it. Down at the central courts in Toronto, they couldn't
Okay.
believe it. And what they did is they scheduled the session out at Ajax, Ontario, which is this town way outside of
Yeah. Just outside.
yeah. They scheduled in this little courthouse in Ajax, Ontario, some judge there, and they had him overturn the verdict in this totally, because they couldn't oh my God, what is this? I got a $750 million default judgment against the government of Ontario. They couldn't believe it. And so anyway, that was really something. That was really something. And yeah, that was uh, north of Peterborough.
Yeah.
And they were about 150 of them that were taken up in a huge spaceship, and they came down and they had this. They were given a mission on the spaceship to bring peace on Earth, and
Wow.
I became their lawyer, and it was amazing. And what it is that the national security state became very worried about them,
Sure.
because they went up and they became vibrating at a different level, and they came down, and then you have the national security state down here, and there's a conflict of the vibrations. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I could
So
send you pictures of Skywatch we had in 2010. It's when Euphoria was called Euphoria. And I was partnered up with a Hungarian, Romanian actually. He was a Department Zero member, used to be former Department Zero. And he was a big time ufologist, used to get all kinds of UFO photos and stuff like that. And we formed Euphoria, which became Euphoria. But anyway, at this one weekend, we advertised come to this camping and camping and UFO watching, and we're roasting a pig, right? When most of the people weren't vegan at the time, right? We're still eating meat, right? And it was just a great time. So that great vibe we were having now during the daytime, and we had kids there. Kids were playing, right? Oh, it's just beautiful. We were playing badminton. I'm a good badminton player, by the way. One of the tops.
wow.
And oh yeah, you should see me. Sometimes when I hit the birdie, I'll lie down on the floor and get back up. Right?
Oh my God.
I'm that quick, right? Which makes everybody mad because he hit the birdie and the guy's lying down on the floor. Pops up back and hits them, right? Anyway, but that event, okay, what happened was this. We had a police helicopter circling, right? This is during the daytime now. Everybody's, the pig's cooking. We're playing badminton. Everybody's talking. Some people are drinking, having a good time. It was just an overall good vibe, okay? And all of a sudden, they go, hey, look, it's the helicopters. What's the helicopter, right? Oh, it's the police. So not only it's a helicopter, it's the police helicopters. So we're waving at the police, right, like that. And it's circling, it's circling. And we're wondering, I wonder what they're looking at. We're looking in the sky, we can't see nothing, So I'm going to take a camera, I'm going to take a picture of the police helicopter coming to spy on our UFO watch. Right? So I took a couple pictures. Paul Shishi, another famous ufologist in Toronto, he took a couple pictures. Lo and behold, when we got the pictures developed, there's a UFO in the pictures, right?
Oh, amazing.
So we couldn't see it by the eye. We were just taking pictures of the helicopter and it got the UFO in there. And the helicopter they sent had a lot of gadgets hanging out beside it. We don't know what they were, right? And it's amazing. I still have the photos. I got about 4 or 5 photos, right? Mostly of the chopper, but a couple pictures with the UFO in it, right? And the funny thing was we did not see the UFO. We seen the helicopter, but not the UFO. But in the multiverse dimensions, right? Phasing in, phasing out, right? The UFO could cloak, right? But during certain frequencies, it uncloaks or something to that effect, right?
Amazing.
It's the human eye couldn't picture, the human eye couldn't catch it,
Right.
but the camera did, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But
Whoa.
we definitely look. If I'm in Vancouver, rumors has it I'm going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
spending. I'm going to come down for at least 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
Weekend.
Well, look, definitely we've got to set some time aside and get together.
Yeah, definitely. Right. I got to meet another person down in Vancouver, a famous UFO abductee as well, and or
Yeah.
abductee.
Also, you can meet my my fellow co-editor at News Inside Out, and
The Kelly guy. Kelly,
Yeah,
is that Kelly?
yeah,
Yeah,
John
I'd love
Kelly.
to meet him. Yeah. He
Yeah,
does things with voice and speech patterns, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But he
yeah.
also is an excellent UFO video and photographer, and we have done many sky watches here where we've captured UFO on videos and
Well,
for
right
the.
on. We'll definitely love to meet him. Yes. Maybe we'll have a Vancouver Fest or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Alfred, it was a blast. I'm going to have you on again
Oh, great.
because we hardly touched on any. We talked a lot, but it was a lot of stuff. It's just not enough time, right?
Yeah.
So I'll definitely get you back on. Is there any guests you'd like to do a panel with?
I'm I am open. I mean, so just.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on behalf of UFORIA Chronicles, it was a pleasure, Alfred.
Thank you.
Can you plug your websites again for everybody?
Oh yeah, you can go to Exopolitics TV, and that's on YouTube. You can go to exopolitics.com, and then our news site is at newsinsideout.com. And if you'd like to look at my books, which is where we have a lot of the knowledge in there, is at universebooks.com.
Okay, universebooks.com. Again, universebooks.com. And you can buy all the books there, Alfred?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because I noticed on Amazon there was a couple. I think the Levesque case was all sold out, right?
Yeah, you can get the Levesque cases there at universebooks.com. I'm pretty sure that you can go to exopolitics.com, and I'm pretty sure that we have a free download for the Levesque cases there. But
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not sure.
Okay.
But
I'll definitely check that out as
yeah,
well, right? I do
anywhere,
want to
check
get
it
the
out.
Omniverse book,
Yeah.
right? And go from there. So thank you very, very much, Alfred. It
Well,
was a
thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely get you back on.
Okay, then. Good enough.
Have yourself a great night.
Okay. Have a good night.
Okay.